Welcome back, my friends. The news today is that South America's offshore oil boom will challenge OPEC's dominance. South America's offshore oil boom is set to make the region a major play in global oil markets, challenging OPEC's dominance. The combined efforts of Guyana and Brazil alone are expected to add nearly 3 million barrels per day of oil production by the end of the decade. Brazil aims to boost its oil production to 5.4 million barrels per day by 2029, while Guyana is expected to be lifting at least 1.2 million barrels by 2027. But before we get into all of that, please hit the like button and leave us a comment below. We would love to hear from you. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you are notified of upcoming videos when they are released. And before we continue, a word from the sponsor of this video. Today's sponsor is ProWorldNet.com. ProWorldNet.com is a job website specifically dedicated to licensed professions. Doctors, including any type of specialty nurses, and that includes all grades of nurses, lawyers, regardless of area of legal focus, teachers and professors from kindergarten through graduate school, as well as any kind of job that requires a government license or certification. And ProWorldNet.com also includes short-term gig-type jobs as well. So be sure to check out ProWorldNet.com if you are looking for a job or an employee. In Guyana's territorial waters, after Exxon's swath of world-class petroleum discoveries, gigantic ships called floating production storage and offloading FPSO vessels are sucking crude oil from reservoirs up to 4 miles below the Earth's surface. Since then, it has been estimated the former British colony of just over 800,000 possesses at least 11 billion barrels of recoverable oil resources. These discoveries not only garnered the attention of energy supermajors, notably Exxon, Chevron, and Total Energies, but heralded a new oil era for South America. Those developments, coupled with Brazil's push to become the world's fourth largest producer, see South America once again on the cusp of becoming a leading oil-producing region with the potential to challenge OPEC's dominance. After the spectacular 2-decade-long implosion of Venezuela's hydrocarbon sector, it is Guyana's massive oil boom, which only keeps getting bigger. That is garnering considerable attention from big oil and will propel South America's oil production higher. In a mere 5 years, Guyana went from first discovery to first oil. This is an incredibly short time span that is unprecedented in a global energy sector where it can take a decade or longer to develop billion-dollar world-class oil discoveries and bring them to production. Guyana is now a major regional petroleum producer, pumping an average 350,000 barrels per day at the end of September 2023, and described by industry analysts as the world's most exciting frontier oil play. The 6.6 million-acre Stabroek Block, where Exxon has made more than 30 discoveries since 2015, which are estimated to contain 11 billion barrels, is pivotal to tiny Guyana's mega-oil boom. Exxon, Hess, and CNOOC make up the consortium controlling the block, holding 45%, 30%, and 25% working interest respectively. The consortium is investing heavily to develop world-class oil fields across the acreage. So far, the partners have approved the development of 5 projects and are evaluating a 6th project, the nearly $13 billion offshore Whiptail development, with the final investment decision, FID, expected during the first quarter of 2024. As each of those operations is commissioned and reaches capacity, Guyana's oil production will grow at a solid clip. In October 2023, U.S. supermajor Chevron announced plans to acquire Hess in a $53 billion all-stock deal. In the announcement, Chevron cited the Stabroek Block as a key reason for the deal, describing it as an extraordinary asset with industry-leading cash margins and low carbon intensity that is expected to deliver production growth into the next decade. Industry analysts estimate Guyana will be lifting at least 1.2 million barrels by 2027, which based on 2022 production data will rank the tiny South American country as the world's 16th largest producer, ahead of OPEC member Algeria. It is increasingly apparent that Guyana's oil output could exceed that number with the FPSOs. Exxon is installing capable of producing greater than nameplate capacity as various operational efficiencies are implemented. Those developments have sparked speculation. Guyana's expanding oil production, which analysts expect to peak during 2035 at around 2 million barrels per day, will diminish OPEC's ability to control global oil prices. Brazil, which is Latin America's largest oil producer and economy, is on track to significantly expand production by the end of the decade, at a time when many OPEC countries are facing potential declines. The regional giant was once a marginal oil producer, but output skyrocketed after a series of world-class oil discoveries in the offshore pre-salt layer were made nearly 2 decades ago in what is now the prolific Santos Basin. The first supergiant discovery was the mammoth Tupi oil field in the Santos Basin. According to data from the National Agency for Petroleum, Natural Gas and Biofuels, ANP, Portuguese initials, Tupi is pumping 497,000 barrels daily, making Brazil's largest oil field responsible for 16% of total production. Meanwhile, the prolific Santo Basin, where 3 out of 5 of Brazil's top-producing oil fields, including Tupi, are located, accounts for 28% of the country's petroleum output. Due to the extent of those world-class discoveries and their rapid development, with foreign energy investment inflows surging since 2008, Brazil is now Latin America's largest oil producer, along with being the region's most powerful economy. The federal government in Brasilia plans to rapidly expand oil production to 5.4 million barrels per day by 2029. If that lofty target is achieved, Brazil will become the world's 4th largest oil producer after Canada and before Russia, based on 2022 global production data. There is considerable speculation among analysts that Brasilia's ambitious target may be unattainable. Data from the ANP shows September 2023 production hit a record 3.67 million barrels per day, while overall hydrocarbon output, including natural gas, hit an all-time high of 4.67 million barrels of oil equivalent per day. For petroleum output to reach 5.4 million barrels daily, Brazil's production must grow by 47%, or 1.73 million barrels over the next 6 years. To achieve such an ambitious target, Brazil's government, in the capital Brasilia, launched the Potencializa Exploration and Production Program. This forms a key plank in Brazil's Ministry of Mines and Energy's strategy to make the country the world's 4th largest oil producer by encouraging investment in frontier, mature, and marginal oil basins. This initiative will attract further domestic and foreign energy investment, with Brasilia's 2031 Energy Expansion Plan, PDE, Portuguese initials, forecasting a total investment of $428 million to $474 million for oil and gas exploration and production. Brazil's national oil company Petrobras, in its strategic plan 2023-2027, committed to investing $78 billion over that period, with 83% budgeted for upstream operations, which will see nearly $65 billion spent on exploration and production activities. The national oil company plans to spend 67% of its upstream budget on pre-salt assets. Those operations are believed to offer the greatest potential to boost output because of low lifting costs and the high-grade and medium-grade sweet oil they produce, which is popular among refiners, especially in Asia. By the end of 2027, Petrobras anticipates that pre-salt assets will be responsible for 78% of oil production. As part of that strategic plan, Petrobras will drill 42 exploration wells, with 24 planned for Brazil's southeast basins, another 16 in the equatorial margin, and 2 for offshore Colombia. Brazil's national oil company will also deploy 16 FPSOs between 2023 and 2027, with 11 destined for the Santos Basin and the remainder for the Campos Basin. Importantly, 6 of the 11 production units bound for the Santos Basin will be deployed to the Búzios field, which has the world's largest deep-water oil field and responsible for 8.7% of Brazil's production, is a key focus of Petrobras' development efforts. By 2027, Petrobras estimates that operated production from the Santos and Campos basins will reach 4.4 million barrels daily. Petrobras' strategic plan, along with growing foreign energy investment, will help to revitalize exploration and production in frontier as well as mature offshore basins to achieve Brasilia's 2029 production target of 5.4 million barrels daily. By the end of the decade, it is estimated that Guyana and Brazil combined will add nearly 3 million barrels per day of oil production, significantly boosting South America's oil output. This once again will make the continent a leading global oil producer, which is attracting considerable attention from big oil. Regional production will grow further because of Washington's decision to ease sanctions against Venezuela, and there is also rising output from Argentina's massive unconventional hydrocarbon boom where production hit an all-time high for March 2023. Those developments will challenge OPEC's dominant role as a global price maker while bolstering nearby supply to U.S. refineries, further diminishing the need for petroleum imports from OPEC. That will reduce Washington's exposure to geopolitical risks in the Middle East and reliance upon Saudi Arabia, where Riyadh has taken a less cooperative approach to U.S. energy needs. Since the discovery of 11 billion barrels of proven oil reserves offshore in 2015, Guyana's oil industry has gone from strength to strength. The tiny Caribbean country has attracted billions in international investment in its energy sector, with billions more expected to follow thanks to several successes. And recent legislation passed by Guyana's parliament is expected to encourage new production and ensure that the small country earns a significant share of its oil revenues in the coming decades. Guyana, with a population of around 800,000 people, is thought to be sitting on top of oil reserves with a value of more than $500 billion. Following significant investment in exploration and production activities over the last decade, it can expect to produce around 1.2 million barrels of crude a day by 2028, according to current estimations. This is a significant increase from the current production rate of 400,000 BPD from 2 vessels. That's equivalent to around 1.1% of the global supply, a contribution that was recently unthinkable in this previously untapped region. This figure means Guyana would be producing more oil per person than any country in the world. So far, ExxonMobil Corp has been the biggest investor in Guyana's oil industry, dominating the exploration and drilling activities. In July, Guyana's Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, approved an ExxonMobil-led consortium to drill 35 new offshore exploration and appraisal wells. The consortium consists of Exxon, U.S. oil company Hess, and China's China National Offshore Oil Corporation. This allowed the consortium to drill wells within its 6.6 million-acre Stabroek offshore block. The EPA deemed that the drilling could be conducted in accordance with good environmental practices and in a manner that avoids, prevents, and minimizes any adverse effects which could result from the activity. In June, the consortium entered into discussions with Guyana about the return of 20% of unexplored or undeveloped areas in the blocks, as per the 2016 production agreement. This includes parts of the Stabroek block and the Kayatur and Kanje blocks. However, Exxon stated that it plans to continue oil and gas drilling even in a reduced area. It expects to begin this drilling in the third quarter of this year and continue through to 2028. This follows several successful drilling operations in recent years. Exxon stated, "The project is being developed to discover new and re-evaluate existing recoverable hydrocarbons from reservoirs in the Stabroek block, thereby enabling potential future development projects." In August, the consortium announced plans to spend a further $12.93 billion to develop their 6th offshore oil project in the South American country, with the hope of starting production operations at the Whiptail project in 2027. To date, the consortium's production activities have provided $2.8 billion in direct revenue to Guyana, as well as supported the creation of 400 jobs. The 6th project is much like the group's $12.7 billion 5th project, Uaru, and is expected to provide an output of between 250,000 and 263,000 BPD. It expects to drill up to 72 wells commencing in 2024, continuing exploration through to 2030. The project could provide up to 540 jobs in the drilling and installation stages, and between 100 and 180 during production activities, according to Exxon. In terms of core markets this year, Guyana has had success in capturing a larger share of the European market. Vessel monitoring data showed that Guyana's crude exports to Europe in the first semester of the year increased to 215,000 BPD, equivalent to around 63% of the country's total exports. Last year, Europe accounted for around 50% of Guyana's crude exports. This rise in exports reflects the changing geopolitical structure of the global oil industry, with many European refiners looking for new crude suppliers following the sanctions introduced on Russian oil in 2022. The ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine has meant that many refiners have had to establish new partnerships in alternative oil markets, with Guyana's strong oil potential over the coming decades looking highly attractive for companies looking to change suppliers in the longer term. Last year, Oil prices hit multi-decade highs shortly after Russia invaded Ukraine, prompting the Biden administration to urge U.S. producers and OPEC to ramp up production at a faster clip so as to rein in spiraling oil prices. However, Saudi Arabia and its allies responded by doing the exact opposite, cutting production when oil prices started plummeting. Predictably, the United States and Europe were irked by the cartel's defiance, with President Joe Biden's administration accusing Saudi Arabia of colluding with Russia and supporting its war in Ukraine. But what do you think? Please hit the like button and leave us a comment below. We would love to hear from you. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you are notified of upcoming videos when they are released. Please share this video on social media. Thank you for watching.